Progressives have been fighting for a special intellectual property waiver that would allow for the production of low-cost generic coronavirus vaccines for low-income countries. Now, considering the fact that this is a pandemic that has impacted everyone globally, it's important for everyone to be able to get vaccinated in order to actually effectively combat coronavirus. However, there is one person who's fighting against it, even with the World Trade Organization wanting to move forward with this waiver for the intellectual property, right? So Howard Dean in Barron's of all places penned an op-ed where he argues intellectual property protections aren't the cause of vaccination delays. Every drug manufacturing facility on the planet that's capable of churning out COVID-19 shots is already doing so, which actually is not the case. So India happens to be one of the countries that's begging for an intellectual property waiver because they want to produce the vaccine, not just for their own people, but for other low-income countries that have essentially been neglected by wealthy countries like the United States. And so Lee Fong from The Intercept fills us in a little more on that, arguing that Dean's claim that global vaccine manufacturing is already at capacity is patently false. Foreign firms have lined up to offer pharmaceutical plants to produce vaccines, but have been forced to enter into lengthy negotiations under terms sent by the intellectual property owners, meaning the pharmaceutical companies like Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, you guys get the picture. The waiver would, however, allow generic drug producers to begin copying the vaccine without delay. Listen, I get it for those who are concerned about the profits of pharmaceutical companies. I would argue that this is a special case. We're dealing with a global pandemic, and it's incredible that Howard Dean, who ran as a progressive, is now shilling for private healthcare companies and for private pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, on this one, Anna, I'm not mad as much as I'm sad. To see what's happened to Howard Dean is one of the saddest things I've ever witnessed in American politics. So look, yeah, it's deeply embarrassing. And look, I don't know if he was faking it earlier when he was pretending to be a populist progressive, or if he genuinely believed it and was trying to do the right thing when he ran for president in 2004. But he took a position. Now they say technically he's not a lobbyist. He works in the lobbying division of his company. And he does government relations. Guess what? That's a lobbyist. We just don't want to call him a lobbyist. So let's just say what it is. I know reporters have to be careful, and technically his company doesn't call him a lobbyist. No, he's a lobbyist. Definitely. He does everything that a lobbyist does, and he gets paid a lot of money to do it. And then he changed nearly every position he had on healthcare because he's a healthcare lobbyist. That's so sad. And what I wonder about guys like Howard Dean is when they go home, are they defeated? Or are they still, after all of those positions? And in this case, you're endangering the lives of literally billions of people. Do you go home and cry but think, okay, but I got a nice house and my friends are all really fancy and every one of them gives me a pat on the back and I don't feel bad anymore. I don't have the press yelling at me. I don't have politicians yelling at me. Everybody celebrates me in Washington. They tell me I'm a good guy. Do you tell yourself pretty little lies or do you sleep yourself, cry yourself to sleep every night, Howard Dean? That's my main question.
Yeah, I mean, the path of least resistance is certainly the pleasurable, leisurely path to take. As we know from personal experience, it's not easy or profitable to be on the left. And so he lost his bid to become president of the United States. And since he lost, he decided, well, I'm gonna make sure that the rest of the American people lose with me. And that's what this is. As again, he lobbies for private pharmaceutical companies and essentially needlessly prolongs this terrible pandemic by making it difficult for low-income countries to have access to this vaccine. So Dean, by the way, go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know why any theoretical media publication would even print any of his trash.
It's Barron's, Cenk. It's Barron's. It's titled Barron's. Like, let that sink in for, like, of course they would let this happen. Like, this is their bread and butter.
Yeah, first of all, you have to pronounce barons as barons. I do declare.
Barons,
okay.
barons,
yeah, barons.
barons.
But having said that, look, barons has got like 3 readers left, and so I actually ironically give credit to some of the mainstream media here. They apparently realized that this was obvious propaganda by a guy paid to do propaganda for the drug companies, and they wouldn't print it, so he had to go all the way to barons to print it. So, but he's gonna print it anyway, and you have to clearly explain this guy gets paid a lot of money from drug companies. That is why he's writing this. Otherwise, you're not actually a news organization.
And I have to add one more. I have to add one more thing because it's important. The argument that you're typically going to hear this argument whenever you have a discussion about lowering the price of pharmaceutical drugs overall. And the same argument was implemented or used by Howard Dean in this op-ed. Well, it's not fair. It's just not fair to these pharmaceutical companies that spent all this money on the research and development. I mean, it's difficult. It's so hard, guys. It's so hard to take that risk and fund the research and development of something that just might not pan out. So they deserve to be rewarded. But the fact of the matter is, this vaccine relied heavily on public funding. And Li Fang, honestly, he did, in my opinion, the best reporting on this vaccine issue from the very beginning of the pandemic. So please check out his work over at The Intercept. He writes, despite publicly funded research and huge infusions of government cash for the development and delivery of vaccines, drug makers have carefully guarded their monopoly on the intellectual property rights and signaled to investors that they plan to soon hike prices. This happens over and over again, guys. Yeah. Look at how much money taxpayers spend on the research and development of pharmaceutical drugs and vaccines, and how they end up getting, totally screwed over later by price gouges and things like that.
So, Anna, I got to say 2 more things here. So I know how business works, and if somebody invests into something, they get a percentage of the company. That is normal operating procedure. In this case, it's the American taxpayers that put in billions of dollars into these corporations so they could get these vaccines. And I'm glad we did, and it was important. And then, by the way, the companies did good work. I'm not taking that away. I think the vaccines are great, okay? So, but America is so corrupt that we're the only country who goes, oh, you know what? We'll give you the billions of dollars and we won't ask for anything in return. We'll just let you rip off the taxpayers. Then we'll let you charge whatever you want, and then we'll pay it out of the taxpayers' money. And then we'll let you do price hikes, and then we'll let you block generic drugs in the rest of the world so people are dying for your profits. And finally, let me end on that point. Think about that, guys. That's literal. I read that if Howard Dean and his drug company friends get their ways, that some in the developed world will not get the vaccine until, you ready for this? 2024. That is 3 years from now. There's 8 billion people on the planet, okay? And they're saying no, until you pay the ransom, we're not gonna give it to you. And we're gonna let God knows how many people die. Is it in the thousands, the hundreds of thousands? Is it in the millions? Over the next 3 years, we're gonna let you die unless you pay the ransom. And Howard Dean just wrote the ransom note.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.